Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to Broadway Comedy Club Radio. I'm your host, Clayton Fletcher, here in Princeton, New Jersey. Kind of a long story, but I'm in a hotel room in Princeton, New Jersey at the moment. And I want to welcome in first and foremost, before we introduce our special guest, let me introduce you to, you know him, you love him. He's my co-host for the many, many years we've been doing this podcast. He's also the owner of Broadway Comedy Club itself and author of the great new book, Did It on a Dare, my friend and yours, Al Martin. Al, how's it going, buddy?
Thank you, Clayton. How are you? How are you, everybody?
Good. How's life in Florida?
Life in Florida is delightful. Things are open. The pool, the beach, the restaurants. You can live life, and I'll be honest with you, if you look at the daily numbers of COVID cases, it's not that much more than New York City, New York State, which is virtually on lockdown. You know, I don't understand this heavy-handed approach on locking down these businesses, and the numbers are still going up. So let's see. Let's have physical ailments from people and mental ailments because everybody's locked down, people losing their businesses, losing their livelihoods. And then our wonderful Congress takes forever to come up with $600 a week. $600 one-time check. Wow.
Yeah, 600 a week would actually be fine with me. But Al, before we get deeper to your political views, I want to introduce our special guest this week. Now, a few weeks ago, we had on this guy's business partner, James, and now we're going to get the other partner from one of our favorite comedy clubs in New York, Standup New York. I'd like to introduce one of the owners of Standup New York, and a good friend of ours. Please welcome to the program for the first time ever, Dani Zoldan. How are you, Dani?
Good. Thanks for having me, guys. Happy Wednesday.
Yeah. So how's your quarantine going?
I was telling Al, before the podcast started, for me personally, it's been very fulfilling. I've really enjoyed my time. I've been coming.
You've been the busiest comedy club throughout all of this, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, we were saying before, I bought the club 12 years ago. There's actually a third partner named Gabe, who you should have on also. But Gabe, I went to high school with. We're best friends. I know him since the 9th grade. He used to do stand-up, so Al, he's probably doing stand-up at your club. I know he's like 17 or 18 years old doing bringer shows. That's how I started going to comedy clubs, being Gabe's bringer. And we bought the club back in 2008. And yeah, we've been here 12 years, and it's been, I don't know, it wasn't so enjoyable for me. Just night after night, doing the same crap, booking the same comics. It wasn't really fulfilling for me. So when COVID hit in March, everything stopped, obviously. And I came to the club every day. I came here at 9 a.m. I got home like 8 p.m. My wife was wondering like what the hell I'm doing at the club every day when we're closed. But it gave me a lot of time, to think and take a step back and get organized, and it just gave me a whole new attitude about this business, which has paid off.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you maybe needed a little bit of a break. I'm sorry, Al, I'm going to let you ask your question. But at first, I just wanted to define something that Dani said for any of our listeners who might not know what he's talking about. He said that he got introduced to the comedy world because his friend Gabe was doing bringer shows. Now, a bringer show is something that new comics have to do if they want to get on stage at a major club. And what it basically means is that Dani's friend Gabe was required to help the comedy club fill the seats in order for Gabe to get on stage, because the theory is Gabe probably wasn't that funny yet. And so if he wants to get on stage, he has to do something for us. So it's kind of a long-standing.
I spent all my money on bringer shows.
Yeah.
I had to work when I was in high school. I worked every Friday. I worked winter vacation, spring break, summers, just to go to bringer shows to be able to
I
afford
hope he
them.
appreciated that.
Yeah, you're a good friend.
He hasn't thanked me.
Al, you had a question.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's amazing how time flies that, Danny actually is one of the veteran club owners now in the city, being at Stand-Up for 12 years now.
That's weird. It's strange to hear that.
Huh?
That's strange to hear that I'm a veteran club owner.
Yeah.
I guess I am, though.
So it's what's weird about it is that you were so under the radar, I guess, in the first 11 and a half of the 12 years.
Exactly.
And now you've really, I guess, blossomed or come out and really have been sort of at the forefront of a lot of the shows that are taking place, the types of shows that are taking place during COVID, and have become extremely outspoken about a lot of the stuff going on politically.
Yeah, let's take these 2 points separately, Al. First of all, Dani, if you could please just share, once you took your break, and your wife was probably happy to see you around the house more once the COVID thing started, but then you kind of revamped what a comedy club owner does. Like, your job description really changed last year with the pandemic, and now continuing into this year, correct?
Yeah, I mean, first I have to say, like the first 7 or 8 years that I had the club, I also ran a business in a completely different industry. I ran a telecom business, which I started back when I was 24. So for 8 out of the 11 years, I was pretty busy running my other business. But for the past 3 or 4 years, yeah, I've sort of been like, behind the scenes, not really vocal. I didn't really have a vision for the club. Whoever was my general manager or booker, I really let them run the club. And I wasn't in control of it. And then, yeah, when COVID hit, that's when I decided I went to the club every day. I live a few blocks away from the club. So I would come here every day. And I think naturally, I just made it my own. I started just like cleaning up 12 years of trash that was piling up at the club. I cleaned out the basement. I cleaned out behind the bar. I started sweeping the floors and vacuuming and cleaning out the manager stand. And that I guess
that alone could take a lot of time.
I'm still doing it every day. Like I commit like an hour just like shredding, papers and just like literally 12 years of trash is piled up. So I think that was part of it, just like knowing physically what was at the club and going through it and throwing things out and keeping things. And I started to feel like the club was starting to become mine. And then I took over the social media account. I'm running it day to day, and I doubled our Instagram following during COVID. And then I took a lead on the park shows, and I've really been hands-on since March, like I've never been before.
Yeah, people think.
So are you away from the other businesses, and now this is the primary? Because I know you're a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, I sold the telecom business like 4 or 5 years ago, so I'm completely out of that business.
Yeah, I was going to say a moment ago, it seems like people think that being a comedy club owner would be, kind of a glamorous job, and it's all like glitz and glamour, but it sounds more like a custodial position the way you just described it.
And he's not wrong.
Right.
I've done those cleanings of the podium drawer in the front. It's like everybody takes everything they have. Oh, just throw it in there for now,
Yeah, Al's no stranger to a mop and a broom. But yeah, talk about those park shows. Like, what did you kind of had to redefine what a comedy club does, because you couldn't have, like, the government wouldn't let you have comedy shows inside your club, and we'll get to that in a minute. But what did you do over the summer? There were shows in the park, and you went from producing 14 shows a week to on average 50. So talk about that a little bit. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, 14 like mediocre shows at the club. Most of the audience was from outside of the States. They're from Denmark and Norway and Finland and Germany. And I don't know, like I always wanted a club with a lot of locals, and we weren't able to figure out how to do that. We're sort of like the United Nations of like comedy clubs. But after when it started getting nice out, I got a City Bike membership. I bought a lawn chair, and I just started spending time and chilling in Central Park. And after like a week or two of just going to Central Park every afternoon and bringing my lunch there and listening to music, I was sitting in Sheep Meadow, just off 69th and Central Park West, sitting under a beautiful tree. I'm like looking out. There's hundreds of people just chilling in the park and playing frisbee and having a football catch. And I emailed John, our booker, and I'm like, dude, I'm in Sheep Meadow. The weather's beautiful. There's hundreds of people here. Why don't we try to do a show in the park? And about a week later, we put our first show together. 6 comics performed without a mic. About 50 people showed up, and it was awesome. I mean, it was probably the first time in 12 years where I felt like I was serving a purpose, and I felt fulfilled. Comics would walk over to me after the show, like, dude, like, we haven't performed in 3 months. It felt amazing. And audience members would come over to me, thank you for doing what you're doing. And it felt amazing. I didn't really get that feeling 12 years being at the club. So I knew I was onto something. And I told John, like, now's our chance, I think, to like set ourselves apart from other clubs. Which Al knows it's like sort of hard to do in this industry. We all have access to the same talent and all of that. So I'm like, let's go big. Let's try to do 50 shows a week. And he thought I was nuts, and we did it. Throughout the summer and fall, we were producing 50 shows a week, and we had 2 spots in Central Park. We were doing a lawn on the Upper West Side. We were on the Upper East Side. We went to Battery Park, McCarran Park, Prospect Park, Astoria Park, and 7 days a week. Saturdays, we were doing like 9 or 10 shows. And it was an awesome summer and fall. We paid all the comics. We paid out thousands of spots. We were selling tickets, and it was a lot of fun.
Now, is like you're sort of selling tickets in the park? Did you get any kind of pushback from the city on that?
Nope. We had cops like watching our shows. No, because we knew what we were doing, it was safe. People that came out, they were socially distancing. It was harmless.
I don't mean from that perspective. I just mean, like, does the city come to you and say, "Hey, wait, you're charging admission on our lawn"?
No, I'm surprised. No, I mean we were very we were very public, promoting our shows on social media and our email newsletter, and New York One did a piece on us, and the New York Times and Wall Street Journal. So we weren't like under the radar and secretive about selling tickets. No one gave us a call.
That's great.
And I think it's something that we're going to continue. Even when the club reopens, I love to do shows outdoors. It was a totally different experience, which I didn't expect would work so well.
Yeah, and it's a lot cheaper on the rent.
Yeah, there's no overhead.
Literally, there's no overhead. Yeah.
And our ticket revenue, I mean, like quadrupled. Like we made more money from tickets doing outdoor shows than indoors. We lost the drinks, obviously, but the ticket revenue was really good.
Yeah, it's just a different business. I mean, the comedy club business is really about, at least in New York City, it's about getting as many people to buy 2 drinks as possible. So many times comedy clubs will give away tickets or let them be sold at a very steep discount because there is a mandatory 2-drink minimum inside the club.
Yep.
Because of that business model, comedy clubs rely a little bit less in New York on the actual admission fees because they make it back on the drinks. But if you're going to do a show in the park, obviously there are no drinks to sell. The government would step in if you started selling, vodka martinis in Central Park. I think that would probably raise a few red flags. But yeah, I think is just a totally different business. This is more like going to see a concert rather than going to a comedy club per se. So you really had to kind of reimagine what it means to be a comedy club owner. And, maybe the government looked at it like, okay, so technically there might be some questionable legality about what they're doing, but to see a small business owner, instead of just asking for a handout amid the COVID pandemic, whatever, just trying to stay afloat by good old fashioned ingenuity, maybe that caused them to say, why don't we just guys alone, because they're actually providing a much needed service right now.
But we also try to sell drinks. The first few weeks, we bought those plastic pouches where you can stick a straw in it, and we made punches, alcoholic punches at the club, and people I think were a little freaked out. We had one like lemonade, it looked like piss, and the other one looked like blood. It looked like it was in an IV drip. So I think people were scared to buy that. But then we try to sell like Trulies and the hard seltzer. And I'm surprised it didn't sell well. So we just stopped selling it.
Interesting.
Yeah, you don't have to schlep all that stuff to the park either.
Yeah, it was a big pain, like
Clayton,
loading up.
I want to correct one thing that Clayton said, and that it kind of struck a nerve in me, and that was when you mentioned other clubs maybe or people looking for handouts. We're not looking for handouts. We just want an equal opportunity to open like other businesses did in the city. It's been almost 10 months into this pandemic, and comedy clubs were never given the ability to open. Bowling alleys were, indoor dining was, gymnasiums were, but we were never given an opportunity to open, and we're in the middle of a lawsuit right now to try to get that to happen with restaurants and be able to open when they reopen. But we've been told to close. We haven't been given a chance to open. We're not asking for a handout. We're asking for our jobs back.
I'm really glad you brought that point up, Al. And anytime you call me to task for something, it gives me a chance to clarify what I meant. I don't think any comedy club owner in the city was asking for a handout. What I was suggesting is that maybe the government looked at what Dani was doing and from their perspective said that they, rather than asking for a handout as the government may see it, they were like taking control of their own destiny, as it were.
Gotcha.
Not that I feel that anyone that's being told they can't go to work is asking for something unfair. If anything, I'm on the side of, I think the government should be taking better care of the businesses that they will actually not allow to open. I mean, if you make it illegal for me to run my business, then, maybe you should also make it illegal for me to have to pay rent at that business. That's how I feel. But
and we were breaking laws, we had our hands tied, like again, Al said, we're 10 months into this. We need to make a living. We have families. We have tuition. We need, like, what are we supposed to do? We can't reopen. We can't do shows outdoors. Yeah, I took it in my own hands, even though I clearly knew I was breaking the law. Like, I need to do what I got to do.
Yeah, and I think that's partly why they turned the other cheek, as it were, because you did what you had to do. And, desperate times call for desperate measures. And the laws were not written with pandemic economy in mind. So I think that sometimes it's just, at the end of the day, what you did with all those shows in the park was provided a much needed relief for people and a service for New York City. And, and all the clubs did what they had to do. Most of them ended up finding a rooftop or a park or Zoom or something because, number one, New York needs comedy. And number two, these businesses are all going to die if they're not allowed to make a profit.
Well, at least two have died.
Yeah.
And there's a rumor that a third one has died, but there's been no official announcement about it. So, yeah, and when you look at that, there's going to be another, I don't see us being out of this at the rate the vaccinations are going and the way the numbers are climbing for the winter, I still don't see us opening till sometime around June, July, something like that, you know? So they're saying originally they were going to try to get 70 million doses a month out. And now Biden said he's looking forward to getting 1 million doses a day out, which is 30 million a month, not 70 million a month. So already they're hedging on the numbers. And, you know, each person's got to get 2 doses. I mean, this could take 6 months easily to get the country inoculated to the point where you knock this thing out, and governors and mayors are going to be comfortable to reopen these businesses.
Yeah.
Al, you think June, July you'll be able to reopen?
I see it no earlier than that, unless they really super ramp up the vaccinations. Because think about it, Donnie, let's say if you go by Biden's word of 30 million vaccinations a month, each person needs 2 vaccinations. So he's basically saying 15 million Americans a month. So even if you extrapolate 6 months, you're talking 90 to 100 million people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's enough to get us open. So it could be longer. You know, the government can't even get the mail to me on time. and now we're going to worry about them getting these shots to all of us.
Yeah, there is reason for skepticism. But Donnie, I wanted to talk to you about February 14th. You've got another idea that you've been cooking up, and I understand it's evolving. So why don't you share that with our listeners, please?
Yeah. So, I mean, originally the idea, you know, was to do an event on Valentine's Day. We were branding it a love letter to the New York City comedy community, and it would be a benefit to support any struggling comedy club. You know, but with Save Our Stages, I think that'll help a lot of clubs, and I want to pivot to help support any struggling working comedians instead.
Yeah. So talk about Save Our Stages. That was something that a lot of the New York City comedy community was fighting for, you know, last month when they were trying to get the bill passed for pandemic relief. So just talk about what Save the Stages means to New York and how this will change your plans for February 14th.
Yeah, I mean, Save Our Stages, you know, it's targeted relief for entertainment venues, so comedy clubs, music venues, theaters, and it's $15 billion. And politicians like Chuck Schumer and Amy Klobuchar, you know, they were very vocal about it. And I mean, I think it's a really good bill, and I think it'll help a lot of venues across the country. And I'm thankful for that. I do feel sad for restaurants and bars. I feel like they should be getting some sort of targeted relief as well. So, you know, I'm concerned about them. You know, as we know, I mean, there's restaurants and bars that have been around for 40, 50 years that have closed down. So they really need more support than they're currently getting. But I think Save Our Stages will be very helpful for venues. Do you agree, Al?
Yes, absolutely. I think that I'm looking forward to what's coming out with that. And I'm looking forward to the lawsuit that we have in place, that we're supposed to hear something in the first week of January, I'm hoping. And, you know, I'm optimistic for those reasons. I'm optimistic for the short-term relief that's coming out, you know, supplemental income, which is going to be good for employees and my family. My kids work in the business as well, so that'll help them. And hopefully, you know, it's all in the hands of this vaccine and how quick they distribute it. And, will there be more vaccines coming out? Besides Moderna and besides Pfizer, will there be other stuff coming out? So I personally like the new Dani Zoldan, who's, rather than the quiet one behind the scenes.
I do as well. Thank you.
I think it shows that you, rather than just being a withdrawn owner, you're showing your passion for the business now. And that can only lead, with a creative mind like you have, that will only lead to more innovations in our business.
I appreciate you saying that. It's interesting because I've noticed a lot of how do I say it? A lot of haters have come forward. I'm not gonna name names, but certain comedy club owners have come out and attacked me, and bookers. Yeah, and a couple of comics, but I think it's jealousy.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I'm trying to lead with like a good heart, and I'm trying to do the right thing. And we produce 500 outdoor shows over the summer and fall. We paid out every single comic regular club spot pay. $25 a spot. We entertain tens of thousands of New Yorkers. We're not having indoor shows, so we're doing the shows in a responsible way. We're pivoting to this fundraiser, which was supposed to be for struggling comedy clubs, which I think is a good thing. We're now pivoting to helping struggling working comics, and there's still people coming out and picking fights and putting me down, putting my club down. I don't know. I think they're just angry and jealous.
Yeah,
I'm really trying to do the right thing.
I think you exactly hit on it. It's jealousy and anger and frustration, maybe, that they're not doing it. I personally think that, I learned this lesson a long time ago in the business. When I first started out, and I talk about it in my book, when I first started out, the big boys on the block were the comic strip, where Lucian Hold was the booker at the time. I don't know if you remember him.
No.
The Improv Comedy Club. Those were the big boys on the block. And comedians would always come over to me and tell me all sorts of stories about these people, how legendary they were and what characters they were. And they were talking about them. And I said to a comic one day, I said, listen, why don't they talk about me that way? Why don't I get that kind of adulation? And they go, well, you're not on their radar, and you should be happy not to be. Because
right.
when you're on the radar, you're a target, and you're going to get.
Right.
And then years later, as those people exited the business, and I grew to have 2 clubs, and at one point 3 clubs, the target was on my back, and I became the one that they talked about. You know, so thank you for taking the pressure off me.
I mean, I'll give you an example. We did a show on the subway Saturday night, which was awesome. We took over the last car on the one train. There was about 20 people. We had 6 comics. It was a fun time. And a booker of a club tweeted out just saw that a club did a show on a subway. I think I'm gonna jump in the Hudson River or something. So I tweeted back to her are you referring to us? And she responded, "You're goddamn right I am." Where does the anger come from?
Yeah,
it's disgusting.
There's a level of jealousy and why didn't I do it? But you know what? You're putting a lot of work into it, and that's what you're getting. You're getting that notoriety based on the work you're putting in.
Yeah, but Dani, I want to let's step away from the haters for a second and let's talk about this comedy show on the subway. Was the audience in that subway car aware that a comedy show was about to start? I mean, how exactly, logistically, how did this even work?
So, I mean, we sold tickets. We set the capacity to 25 tickets maximum that we can sell. We called it the Red Line. Yeah.
To a New York City subway event. That's great.
We called it the Red Line Comedy Show. And yeah, we called it the Red Line Comedy Show, and we did it on the one train, and we all met at 72nd Broadway in front of Bloomingdale's, 6:45 this past Saturday night. About 20 people showed up, and then we proceeded down to the downtown subway platform, and there's no one in the last. Actually, we were about to get in the last car, and there was like a homeless guy with his pants off, like lying on the bench. So we took over the second to last car.
Oh, you went to the next car. Okay, yeah.
We went to the next car. It was funny. I mean, that's why it was so hilarious. Like, we had that unexpected moments where we're all about to get in the car, and then we see this half naked guy lying on the bench. So we took over the second car, and we took it down to South Ferry, and then we transferred to the Uptown one train, and we got off at 72nd, and it was like an hour and 15 minutes, and it was a lot of fun.
That is
and
so cool.
No transit cops, nobody bothered you.
No, the conductor like came out and gave us a thumbs up. He loved what we were doing. A comedian actually had a great line. He said that the conductor has seen a lot of things on this train, but never a venue.
You should have had the conductor MC the show.
We're running out of like options. We can't do shows in the parks because it's cold. Rooftops are cold. We did a show in a church last month, which was a lot of fun. Like, besides like houses of worship and subways, where else can you do an indoor show?
Yeah,
incredible.
And it's been fun, like, just experimenting with different stuff. I didn't know how the subway show would go, but John, my booker, was like, I don't know if this is a good idea, and we did it, and it was fun.
Well,
Everyone
you know
loved
what
it.
I see in your future? I see a high-end comedy show on a private jet.
You never know.
You never know. 20-seater.
It's a good idea. I like it.
Yeah.
To get big names. I love it.
Maybe get a big name act, a catered meal, and a flight to nowhere.
You never know. I hope not a flight to nowhere. Sounds like the Malaysian flight.
yeah. Well, maybe a round trip flight from to JFK. That might be better. Yeah. Well, I was wondering, like, on the subway, did you have amplification? Because you said in your park shows you didn't use a microphone. So were the comics just kind of yelling over the noise of the subway, or how did that work?
Well, with the park shows, the first few weeks we didn't have a microphone, but then when we saw the Parks Department weren't giving us any issues, we did bring a mic and speakers, and they didn't give us problems. So yeah, we did the same on the subway. We had a mic and we had a speaker, and the sound was like remarkably good.
Yeah, you didn't use the mic that's already on the subway. That
No.
Now, I do remember in the beginning of the pandemic, it's funny, you've done all these shows in all these unique spaces, the subway here and there. You actually tried a very basic show outdoors in front of your own venue.
Yeah.
But then you got a little bit of pushback, right? I mean, the cops came and they said, no problem. And then I guess it had to be neighbors that were being pains in the asses, as I have them in my venue. And they must have given you a hard time, or they must have called the cops again, and then it got closed down. Is that correct? Or
yeah, we did a show in front of a club back in the spring. We brought in a pickup truck. We used the bed of the truck as a stage. And Upper West Side, you have a lot of like old people, old ladies that just love walking around and complaining. Across from the club, there's a woman that lives on the 5th floor, and she was like heckling one of the comics from her 5th floor. And I assume she called the police. It sucks. Like, New Yorkers, they want everything. They want to control what you're doing, and then they want to make it difficult for you to conduct business. But then when every third storefront is out of business, they complain that all these stores are out of business.
Right.
So they want it both ways.
If you ever want to, and I'm sure you've gone through this, if you ever want to open up your eyes as to what goes on behind the scenes in New York, go to the liquor license community board meeting to hear when prospective businesses want to open up in New York, and what these 6 people sitting in the liquor committee, the stupid questions they ask, and and how many people get denied, at $5,000 a pop for a license? How much revenue is being lost in this city because you get people who have had no power their entire lives, so they get themselves onto a community board and just harass the hell out of entrepreneurs who want to make something special of their neighborhood. And I guarantee you, every person that's doing that is probably in some $89 a month rent-controlled apartment, contributing virtually nothing to the local neighborhood, but complaining.
Well, I can go even
I'm with you.
bigger than that, Al. Like, you guys know I worked on a lot of cruise ships over the years, and the staff on the cruise ship, the crew, they always hate when the next cruise is based out of New York, as opposed to Miami or Galveston or wherever else cruise ships originate. Nowadays, more and more cruise ships have been originating in New York. Obviously not in the last year, but before that, that was kind of a trend that more cruise ships were leaving from New York. They would tell me across the board of all the cities where the people can get on, the group that is going to be the hardest to please is the New York City passengers. And the reason for that is because New York has always been a place where you can get whatever you want, whenever you want it. And we're not shy about making sure that things are right, because it's kind of the nature of the New Yorker is that we have to fight for every inch of space, for every dime of pay. And so we end up fighting for like how many shrimp are in my in my Chinese food or something like that. So we have that reputation, and from people from around the world, when I worked on those cruise ships, it is a well-founded reputation. So we just have a few minutes left, Donnie, but I wanted to ask you, your partner very famously wrote that New York is dead, and you were talking a moment ago about how restaurants and bars are not getting the support that they need. And, when people think of New York, they think of world-class entertainment. They think of world-class dining, bars, clubs, lounges, Broadway. Is New York dead? Do you agree with James on that?
No. And I'll tell you why. We've been shooting a docuseries since the summer. I've had a camera crew just like follow me around and a few comics about what we're doing, and it was an awesome like New York moment back in probably August or early September. We were shooting a show in Sheep Meadow in Central Park, and after the show, this guy, an old woman, walks over to me and one of the comics on the show, and he was like, this was amazing. This is my mother. She's like 95 years old. We had an amazing time watching the show. This was very New York. And he's like, I'm a film producer, and I produce The Fisher King. The last time, I was here was when we shot Robin Williams, like 20 feet away. And he's like, I just
love stand-up New York.
Yeah, I heard. Cool. That's good to hear. And we were talking for like 2 hours, probably till like 9 or 10 o'clock at night in Central Park with his mom, and he's telling us stories from like his film career and telling stories of Robin Williams on set of that movie. And, that came up, the New York City is dead conversation. And his response was the best. Like, New York goes through like phases and ups and downs, and things are good and things are bad. And that's what's special about New York. Like, what's going on right now is New York, whether even if people are moving out, if stores are closing, that's what's beautiful about New York, that it always changes. So I think his response like really resonated with me.
Yeah, well, you're definitely one of the guys that's trying everything in his power to keep New York alive and vibrant. And,
I love New York. I've lived here since I'm 14 years old. I grew up downtown, 18th and 5th. I love the city. Like, in whatever form it is, it's never going away.
Yeah, well, time will tell how it's going to change. Donnie, is there anything that we didn't get to that you wanted our listeners to know about you or about your what's going on with your Instagram doubling or anything else, as it relates to you and your venue?
I mean, not really. I mean, we're again like, COVID again. I mean, again, like I guess instead of people saying how much like 2020 sucks, I think it could be used as an opportunity to think differently. No matter what is thrown your way, use it as an opportunity, and use it as a way just to think differently and reinvent yourselves. And I think we accomplished that.
Yeah.
And again, it gave me, I'm it's like a 180 the way I'm thinking now from when before COVID hit, and the Alexa Pro helps also.
Yeah, well, we go back to the beginning of this conversation, Al, and Donnie was saying, he was getting burnt out. He was spending all day, every day at the club, and he felt uninspired. And, it sounded like he really needed a fresh look at his business and just in how he feels about maybe comedy in general. So maybe today we might have actually found someone who sees a silver lining in all this. What do you think, Al?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this has unleashed a side of all of us that is not only humbling to some degree, but I think is the really good business people will figure it out and will make it work no matter what. And I think Danny has proven that whether it succeeds or not, he's going to keep trying and he's going to be pitching. And, when you throw enough stuff against the wall, something's going to stick. And don't worry about what others are saying. Just keep on doing it.
Absolutely. I couldn't said it better.
And I wish the industry would work together more. And I appreciate you guys like reaching out. When I'm launching my own podcast in January, so I'd love to have you guys on. I've been trying to reach out to other club owners. Some, I've been successful at, and they want to talk. Some are very like closed off, and they view us as competition. I'm trying to be more open, and let's like talk. Let's figure out how to keep this city going.
God knows how many interests we have in common in the business,
And we'd love for you to be involved also in the fundraiser to help like working comics. So we'd love you guys on board.
As you were describing it, and I know we're pressed for time, I'll make it very short. I had one idea. Like, we all have mailing lists and we all have email lists. I think one idea could be to turn it into a telethon.
That's what we're doing. Yep. I didn't mention that before, but that's the plan to have it on broadcast TV or on a streaming service. But we'd love Broadway to be on board as one of the clubs that's supporting talent. If comics are having trouble paying their rent or buying groceries or paying medical bills, that's what we want this fundraiser to help support.
Well, you can count on Broadway and Greenwich Village Comedy Club in that endeavor, for sure.
Great. So those are our first two clubs on board.
Great. We got Standup New York, too.
Yes, we got 3 clubs on board. So I think we can do a lot together to help the community.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, when I saw on Instagram at StandUpNY, that's your Instagram, at StandUpNY, I noticed that you guys were doing that, and that's when I first reached out and I said, I think this is a great thing that you're doing on February 14th, and I wanted to have you on so that we could help you publicize it. Al and I are very proud of being the first comedy club in New York to have a podcast.
Yeah,
right.
Now they all do, but we believe in the helping. If we help comedy in general, it can only help what we're doing at Broadway and at Greenwich, and just kind of keeping New York great and strong. And we would hate to ever see the day in our lives when New York City is not the world's capital of stand-up comedy. So that is part of our mission, and you're obviously on the same page. So we just want to thank you for coming on the podcast. Any parting thoughts before we say goodbye, Dani?
No, it was great chatting with you guys. Happy New Year, even though I think this will launch after the New Year. But I hope you guys have a great 2021.
Yeah, we appreciate you being here, and thanks so much for your time.
And let's be in touch, and let's work together.
Yeah, and we should. So, Al, what are your final thoughts on this episode?
I think it's accomplished a lot. It's gotten at least 3 comedy clubs to work together, where that was almost impossible for years before that. And I'm very excited for what the new year will bring, and I'm looking forward to working together.
Well, as you well know, ever since 2021 started, I've been pounding the table on let's try to find the silver linings on this dark cloud, and this too shall pass. So it looks like we're taking us in the right direction here. So for Dani Zoldan and for Al Martin, and of course, great special thanks to our wonderful tech guru / producer, Jay Frank, in the booth. I'm Clayton Fletcher. Thank you so much for listening.
Hi, Al Martin here, owner of the Broadway Comedy Club and Greenwich Village Comedy Club in New York City. And I just authored a great book on stand-up comedy and my 30-year journey called Did It on a Dare, How I Built a Comedy Empire in 30 Short Years. So if you want an interesting story on the comedy scene in the 90s and early 2000s up until the present, if you're an aspiring comic and want to learn about some of my golden rules of comedy from a comedy club owner, this is the book for you. It's available on Amazon, and just go to Amazon, click Al Martin, and it'll take you right to my page. It's available on audio and Kindle, as well as paperback. Thank you.